Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. It's another edition of Wednesday Night Live. We got Coach Dub, we got RT Young, esteemed author RT Young. We'll hear about that more in a little bit. Justin Wells is on his way back from DeSoto, Texas, America. May join us, may not, but we'll keep this quick. We know y'all are going to want to watch the Horns play a little hoops later at 8 p.m. So if you're here, thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, go to Inside Texas. Make sure you sign up and keep up to date with all the latest and greatest. And Coach, you, RT, you the same. Y'all were both members of the community at Inside Texas kind of before y'all started getting in to y'all's increased role. And I think, and fantastic role y'all do with us, but I also think that y'all may know better than what I might be able to say with how Inside Texas tries to keep things pretty measured. We understand, like, hey, if something happened, you got to cover it. But we're not saying like, oh, you know, so-and-so posted a picture of his challenger on Instagram and making content out of that and things like that. At the same time, RT, you wrote today about it's time for Arch Mania to start. And I think you and I kind of agreed, like, there's Texas people, and then there's Texas interest, and we have our own bubble. There's college football interest, you know, which expands to fans of 134 plus teams, and then there's sports interest, and then there's just general interest. And the Texas Longhorns have a quarterback now that reach into that general interest. I call it, for lack of a better term, like front page of Yahoo interest. And we're going to get to experience that off season. And like Chris Bennett said, kind of started with the Marty Smith interview as well.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy that, you know, they essentially waited for college football season to end, you know, Ohio State have their proverbial parade very briefly, and then they sent ESPN down to Austin, Texas, to my high school stadium, by the way, which I thought was funny. I could tell I played in the first ever game in that stadium when I was in the 8th grade. No big deal. But anyways, they had Arch Manning ready to go, ready to be interviewed. And I think it said more about the frothing of the mouth in the media sense more so than it did Arch Manning. Obviously, there was the Red Bull and, you know, things like that, those NIL deals that needed to really come up. And, you know, he obviously, I think, wanted to really, before his face was front and center with a lot of these NIL deals, make sure he was the starting quarterback. But ESPN, they're clearly ready to roll out the red carpet. So is the nation at large as far as it goes with college football coverage. So, I mean, I think like the fact that this happened in late January and we're already talking about one player who really has not started a full season. I mean, it's truly like nothing that I can remember in college football. The only thing I can compare it to that I've really experienced and that I wrote about today for InsideTexas.com was really remembering LeBron James and his ascendance while he was in high school, how it just felt like it was this slow build for him to get to the NBA. And that was a testament to LeBron and the fact that he wasn't from the first family or the royal family of football like Arch Manning is. But Arch Manning, I mean, he's a LeBron-esque figure in the sports stratosphere. So it's pretty wild, and Texas fans get to enjoy it.
Coach, one of the unique things that I thought RT made very clear is you talk about some of the transcendent athletes from, I'll just go the past 15 years, Johnny Manziel. But nobody knew who Johnny Manziel was when he was coming out of Tybee. He was just the next guy. No, people knew who Tebow was, but Chris Leak was still the starter. And you can even kind of go all the way back to Vince Young a little bit. Vince Young had to redshirt. Like, and I'm trying to think of some other like cross sport examples. Like Bryce Harper was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but Bryce Harper didn't just he was Bryce Harper. He wasn't Bryce Ruth or Bryce Bonds or anything like that. this is Arch Manning, and so it's just a different thing. Even with the analog we have to compare to, like Chris Sims, it's just a different level of madness that, like I said, we're going to try to be measured about, but we're also going to recognize the tidal wave that's coming as well.
Yeah, definitely. But you got to think about, I guess, Arch. We've gotten to see a small piece of what Arch could do, so that increased the hype of so much more than it would be for anybody else, right? Like Michael Jordan's sons didn't even have this going into college whatsoever. Nobody thought about them like, oh, are they going to be good as their dad? But it wasn't this much hype. I don't even think Bronny, or I can't think of the young one, LeBron's kid, had that much hype as Arch. So I think people have been waiting on this, especially Texas. We've been waiting on the next, right? We had BY. We've been reaching and climbing for that next guy. Who is it going to be? We got Quinn, right? And I think he calls the Arch career walk, but it's like, he comes from the first family of the Mannings. They're known for development of quarterbacks. You look at Granddad, you look at his uncles, right? I don't think you see this again until you see maybe Tom Brady's son plays quarterback. I don't know. We'll have to see what that circus would be like, but it's just huge because you know the expectations that Manning name has. And so you expect the same kind of greatness from Arch. And Texas fans are just ready and wanting that so much. I think that's where the hype comes from.
RT, if things go as planned, you may have to rewrite and figure out a new A for the book that you've got coming out soon. The Longhorn Alphabet, Texas Football A to Z. Check out longhornalphabet.com. That's where you can pre-order the book. As you can tell, that's Longhorn legend Derek Johnson, who gave a ringing endorsement for it. I'm giving a ringing endorsement for it as well. Who did end up being, I know you got 26, so you don't want to give it all away, and you've posted some on social media, but who ended up getting A? And, you know, when we make version 2 of this, if there is one, you think Arch is going to be the guy who gets that second opportunity?
Yeah, maybe. A is just kind of a tone setter for the whole book. So A is just the city of Austin. So, you know, it's not even a specific player. A lot of players, a lot of legends, and there's even some deep dives and, you know, some inside jokes that are buried in there for, you know, the astute fan. So it dives deep for sure. But A is just a tone setter. So yeah, maybe Arch will, in the, you know, hopefully 4th and 5th editions, he'll get to claim that spot. But Derek Johnson, Longhorn legend, you know, he's very close to the Mount Rushmore of UT football, if not on it. He's on the cover. He has 5 sons, which is really exciting. You got to think that a few of them will end up at Texas, or hopefully they will. But yeah, I was obviously really excited to get his endorsement, get him for the photo shoot, put him on the cover. He's one of my favorite players growing up. And yeah, I mean, there's something in there for everybody. And I think families will really enjoy, you know, reading it together.
Hey, nothing like, sorry to hide your face there, but Elijah Perez has a great comment. Already ordered a couple copies this morning for his son and a friend's son. I'm getting on that later tonight as well for my little girl. So should be.
Appreciate you, Elijah. Thank you.
Yeah, this is really cool. If you're part of Inside Texas, check it out. If you're not, go ahead and check it out. longhornalphabet.com. Great illustrations. A lot of history too. It's just a really cool way to you know, connect the, you know, you see Derek Johnson's kids there. They're younger than, you know, they may not be they may not be older than his jersey number in some cases. And you get to learn about some great things. You've posted some on your Instagram. You go all the way from Worthy to Whittier, obviously Earl Campbell, Bijan gets some stuff in there. So it's very, very up to date. And it's a really cool way to, like I said, connect to the past with your little ones, and also connect with some Longhorn lore. Any good story that you can share from trying to get this as a little bit of incentive to show people to longhornalphabet.com?
Man, I think that, you know, there's a couple, like I said, there's a couple inside jokes. Like I've purposely not really ever posted a picture, even in the previews in the black and white versions, of what the letter R is. I think it's something that all Longhorn fans, if you've been following the team for since the Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley days, you'll find pretty funny, just because it's something that got shoved down our throats every single week that they played together. So you can probably take a guess at what that might be. But yeah, I think that will be pretty special, pretty funny, and yeah. So I think people will enjoy it.
Oh man, it should be a lot of fun to check out. And again, longhornalphabet.com. Before we keep on going, this may be a short show, like I said, just because we got Longhorn basketball on the other side at 8 p.m. Let's show some love to our sponsor and maybe welcome a second guest. That is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
LC, thank you so much. Talked about Arch Madness, Arch Mania, whatever you want to call it. We got to get to the big recruiting news of the day. And Coach Dub, we were really excited about this one. I think ever since we learned who Max Wright was, we're like, that's a kid who doesn't look out of place in a Texas Longhorns recruiting class. And today he made the call to jump on in. What excites you about Max Wright, the first offensive line commit in the 2026 class?
Yeah, I think what really excited about Max, first of all, you got it right when you said big recruit, because like Max is a big kid. I just remember seeing him last summer. I was like, oh, who is this tall kid, right? And let's find out who he was. He had the biggest smile on his face because he got the offer last summer. But I think the sky's the limit with Max. You ever see one of those big kids who really just filling out, trying to get used to their tall body, kind of grew too fast, and you can see all the traits and everything, like he's going to be good. And so I think Max football is ahead of him, and I think with Coach Kyle Flood and the mental makeup of Max, who wants to get there, wants to come to Texas because he wants to be developed, right? Because he saw what they did with Trevor Gooseby. He's like, I want to go there and be coached hard to develop. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get out of him. I wrote on Eric's post earlier today. He had a Stanford offer. That's a lot about who he is. He's very cerebral. So a cerebral guy with a mean streak, I think you got a good combination of offensive linemen. And so I can't wait to see what he does once he gets to Austin.
One of the things that kind of stood out to me was he's at Melissa right now. Yeah. And so that's where Trevor Gooseby comes from. It's where Trevor's little brother, Austin, is a real high-quality basketball prospect, if I remember right. But he was at Plano West, correct?
Yes.
And I know everybody remembers that John Tyler game, but Plano West is not a football power these days, right?
Nah, two players I can remember. Jeff Coate and So I can't pronounce his last name. So
Mabo. He wanted to go to UCLA for
Asian girls everywhere.
Yeah. It was that a Childish Gambino lyric? But anyway, he goes and gets into a step up in competition at Melissa. Obviously, if you know a little bit about the DFW football scene, you've heard about their stadium, and it's expensive. There's a commitment to football there in the city of Melissa, and he's playing really well at a really high level. And you can tell he's playing left tackle, coach, and that might be the position he ends up at Texas. But he offers a great versatile floor for the Longhorns at this juncture.
Yeah, definitely. He played left or right tackle. But you look at him, like I said, he's not even close to being where he's going to be, body-wise. And once he gets a little more muscle, a little more mass, so who knows what he's going to be. But that is like a big human that Coach Kyle Flood covets and loves. But look how he gets to the second level. It's like he's just going through the field picking flowers. It's so easy for him, right? And so I love him. He plays with great balance too, though. Pass may be a little too high, but look, he plays with great balance. Gets his hands inside, doesn't hold. He finishes his blocks. I love it.
Patrick Page has it right. Plano East played John. That was a little bit before my time. I only see that on VHS tapes from that high school comeback.
Plano East, John Tyler.
Yeah. What I was mentioning, Justin, and glad you're with us. He was at Plano West, and that's not a very big football power these days.
That's where Jackson Jeffcoat went, I think.
Yeah. Justin, one of the things that Eric mentioned in his post, and that Charlie just kind of touched on, is that the floor for this class is very high now that Max Wright is a part of the group.
Yes, Charlie. Actually, I was talking to a couple coaches earlier. I've got the hiccups, guys, so you're going to have to apologize. I've had it for like the last half hour, and I've had them all day long. They're the worst. But you know who doesn't have the hiccups? That's Max Wright. And this is a guy that if this is your floor, gentlemen, this is going to be one hellacious 2026 O-line haul. And last year, I thought they did well. Not as good as the year before or even the year before that. Those were loaded with stars. Last year was more of your developmental guys. Takes that are going to take a little bit longer maybe to warm in the oven. These guys, I mean, you got to get your tackles. You get them now. And they need at least 3 in this cycle. So if Max Wright is your floor, John Turntine, Felix Ojo, Zayden Crimpin, who can play guard and tackle, guys, that has a Kyle Flood O-line haul written all over it. Big humans that can move people. Max Wright's listed about 6'8". He told me this morning he's at 290 now. So I'd say he's more in the 6'7", 6'8" range, 290. But, man, what a get. And this is a smart kid. This kid knows these spots do not last long. He understands if you want to jump into this cycle at Texas, this is how you do it. And I thought this was a big thing. And, listen, give some shout-out to Melissa, because one of the things he told us about committing to Texas was he watched how Kyle Flood has developed Trevor Gooseby, who wasn't the most highly rated guy, and has essentially turned him into the number 1 graded returning offensive tackle in the SEC. Like, that made an impression on Max. But this is a football family. His dad played at Oklahoma State. He has grown up around this sport his whole life. He's a yes, sir, no, sir. He's an ultimate team guy. He is a locker room guy. He will check every box in a mental evaluation. If you're a Texas fan, you need to be happy, because you need 3 legit offensive tackles in this class, and this is the good way to start it with Mr. Wright.
When we think of the O-line classes, like 2021, if I remember right, that was one of the top O-line classes from in-state in a long time. Like, you had guys like Tommy Brockermeyer, Donovan Jackson, he's going to hear his name called, Bryce Foster, Ruben Fothery, starter, Sagan Bird.
Hayden Connor.
I'm trying to get down the list.
We're talking about the highly rated ones, RT. Not the ones with the highest grades.
But I'm like, even if Hayden Connor had that's quite the floor, because all those other guys started for multiple years, at Power 5 programs, and you have Hayden Connor who really fell in the rankings, and that was a great year.
And so Connor has more starts than anybody else. I bet he has more starts to his name than anybody else Joe named.
Yeah.
Yeah, his father was kind of in and out at A&M, right?
Fothery might be up there, because he's held a starting spot at A&M for a while. But I mean, I'm scrolling through and looking and seeing guys like Connor Hefferman, Cullen Montgomery. Like, there are a lot of guys in that 2021 class that maintain starting positions at a lot of different schools. And I think this is the 2026 class could be one that starts to really contend with that one. Maybe some other ones. I just remember that one standing out above the rest.
I'll add to that, Joe. Not just 2026. Charlie, let them know. 2027s. There are some offensive tackles in the class of 2027 that might be that have higher higher ceilings.
Could be.
There are some potential superstars in 27. So it's not falling off anytime soon in the state of Texas.
At all.
Man, there's some great names in this 2021.
I'm going to see one tomorrow.
class.
Big Juice, Damarian Johnson.
Seth Hennigan was the number 183 player in the state in that class. Granted, he's a quarterback, but
Granted, he's going to play in the NFL. I think he's the all-time winner in Memphis history. He was a 3 or 4 year starter at Memphis, and I think he just finished up his career. It's funny, when I was at Ryan years ago, Seth started, I believe, as a freshman at Memphis, or maybe he was thrust into the job because of injury, and he played incredible. And his dad's, obviously, Dave Hennigan, the head coach at Ryan, his dad had mentioned a dozen schools came after Seth right after that freshman year. And Coach Hennigan was like, you know what? They took a chance on Seth. He's not leaving them. He's loyal. That reminds me of Max Wright. Why did Max Wright want to jump into the boat with Texas? Because they were early and they were loyal. And he feels like he wanted to return that loyalness.
Loyalness.
That's a new one.
I love that one.
East Texas.
The loyalty of ness.
Oh man, I love that.
I think
one.
loyalness is what
in East Texas.
Justin's wearing that Raiders shirt. I think loyalness is what they call the Raiders call their cities that they go to. You know, they don't have much loyalness to any geographical region.
But their fan base might be as loyal as any in the NFL, fellas. I've been to their game. I've been to Raiders games. They're different. If there's a team that's close to a college atmosphere, it's the Raiders.
There's two. It's the Raiders and it's the Packers.
Well, I mean, Packers. I've been to Packers games. You're right. I've been to Steelers games, big time. Dallas Cowboys, actually, their fans travel probably more than anybody. They're renowned for that. But I'm just telling you, the Raiders fans are a little different. They're a little off kilter, and that's what I love about them.
When I was a traveling salesman, I was on an airplane one time, and I was talking to this guy next to me. I'm normally not a talk to people next to you on a plane type of guy, but I was on this day, and I think we were leaving Oakland. Had a connecting flight in Oakland to come back to Austin, and I was asking a guy about the Raiders moving to Vegas, and I was like, "Sir, are you going to stick with them?" And he pulled up. He had a dress shirt on, and he pulled down his sleeve, and he had a Raiders tattoo, and it said "Loyal Forever." And so he was like, "I'm sticking with them, baby. I like going to Vegas." So yeah, I don't think they lost many fans.
Hey,
unlike
Justin,
another team, and don't.
No. I'm not. Look at that logo. You see, it doesn't say Oakland. It doesn't say Los Angeles. It doesn't say Las Vegas. It just says Raiders on it.
It says Raiders. Hey, I grew up and still am to this day Dallas Cowboys fan, true and true. They were my first love in any sport. But I grew up in the early 80s, and the Cowboys were actually really good in the early 80s. 3 consecutive NFC championship games. They just couldn't get to that Super Bowl in those early 80s. I was there to watch Marcus Allen and the Los Angeles Raiders upset the Washington Redskins. We hated the Redskins. That was our rival. So, and I always liked the silver and black. I loved Marcus Allen. I loved the uniforms. Then my favorite player, Bo Jackson, shows up in Oakland. And so I've always had a little affinity for the Raiders. I've always kind of been a fan of the Raiders. But I got to tell you, Jeremiah Tabor, our guy here, El Gato, Mr. Cat, or the Cat, Jeremiah Tabor, I actually watched him play this last season, freshman starting running back for Melissa. He is already on Texas big board. That is a big kid too. I mean, he's probably 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", at least 200 pounds. His best sport though is baseball. He's a left-handed hitter and he's an outfielder. Dude has an immense amount of talent.
Yes.
Be sure and pay attention to Melissa. We're going to be going around Melissa a lot more now. Peyton Porter, outside linebacker. My man Charlie's already been hooking up with that dude. Jeremiah Tabor, we're on that guy. Matt Nally is killing it at Melissa right now. Some of the best facilities in the United States of America. Inside Texas will be back there soon.
Should be a lot of fun. Before we keep on going, got one more ad break to get to. That one is David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Jimmy Butler to the Warriors.
That just happened?
Yeah.
That just happened?
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
watching the NBA used to be fun.
Yeah, I watched the
Not
Rockets.
happening in this house.
I watched the Rockets puke up a game last night, and so we'll see what happens there.
At least the
Spurs are
Warriors
doing pretty well in De'Aaron Fox's debut.
Dude, De'Aaron Fox is smooth
Yeah, he is.
silk. We watched him in high school. That dude is a ball.
That was
the Spurs. You want to know how a franchise is ran? Watch the San Antonio Spurs. Watch the Houston Rockets. That's how you run franchises, fellas.
it took the Rockets a little bit, but let's get back to the NFL draft. And Coach, you had a very unique opportunity this past week. You got to see Barron Sorrell, you got to see Quinn Ewers, and you got to see Alfred Collins work out. Those are all guys. Let's start with Sorrell, because I think of all the draft prospects on the Longhorns, the only one to participate in the Senior Bowl, and he made the most of it, and he was right back to work this week.
Yeah, he was, man. Seeing him, up close and personal work out, just how serious he really takes it, and see what the transformation in his body. He does not look like a guy who puts his hand in the dirt. He looks like a chiseled outside linebacker who can drop back in coverage. He's so smooth in his movements, getting through bag drills. He has such violent, strong hands. I was like, man, who is this guy? All right, he's just I wouldn't be surprised if this guy continues to move up. If he performs like he did while I saw him just doing drills, if he does that to come by, he's going to shoot up the draft board because he is so smooth. He's so fluid. I mean, how can you not move up, right? And then you combine that with how he played the past couple of years, and like Eric said, he's going to really kill it when he does interviews, right?
Oh,
he's a complete player on and off the field, and I think teams are going to be happy if they take him.
This was what he checked in at
the epitome of development in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, and remember, he signed up for a Chris Ash defense that went to 4 down, and he was probably going to be, I don't know what he would have been in Chris Ash's defense. They may have thrown him on the weak side with how they kind of did that under front. Yeah. But you see, he's 6'3.5", 253 pounds. The way to read these NFL measurements is that's 9 4/8, arm length 32 4/8, wingspan 77 7/8. Let's see, 72 is 6 feet, so it's 6 foot, almost 6'8" wingspan, right there, for a guy who's 6'3.5". That 253 is what's really interesting to me, RT, because he played that jack position for Pete Kwiatkowski. Had to do a little bit of everything. I think Texas put him at 260 on the roster. And this kind of screams to me, this is someone who needs to be playing alongside another guy who's like 280, but outside he has a very clear positional fit in the NFL with measurements like this.
Yeah, he had that dip and rip sack at the beginning of the Clemson game on Cade Klubnik that I was just like, man, this dude, like you could even tell, you feel like, a lot of guys when they're seniors, and he's just, he even made a couple splash plays in 2021 in Sark's first year. So you feel like these guys have been around for a long time or sometimes finished products, but he was clearly getting better towards the end of the year. He had a great game against A&M, a great game against Clemson, and then, made several plays in the games after that against Arizona State and Ohio State. So I feel like he's continuing to get better. I was at lunch with a friend a couple weeks ago, and the Senior Bowl was on the TVs in this restaurant, and friend's not a UT fan, and he was like, man, who's number 4 for UT? He is dominating this Senior Bowl. And so obviously you could even notice it in those like brief practice clips that they televised of the Senior Bowl practice. So I'm really excited to see what he becomes positionally. That's probably more coaches where coach can say where he thinks he should end up in the NFL. But I just see somebody who's continuing to get better despite, being in a program for 4 years.
Coach, what were some of the things he had to say about some guys who are still on the roster?
Yeah. So, him being an edge himself, I wanted to ask, who's the next guy up in the edge room? And he straight said, the one nobody's really talking about is Zina Umazulu. And I hope I said his last name right.
Umazulu. How am I saying that right? Hey, I had a lot of practice. I've been talking to Zina for 4 years, so I had some practice.
Coincidentally, they share the exact same trainer, which is awesome. And so that's who Zina trains with in the off season. But that's the one that nobody's talking about, saying he can really be good. He soaks in information. He actually listens. He takes notes. He tries to apply everything everybody teaches him. And he's one of the hardest workers in the room. So he would not be outworked. And so you love to hear that from a young guy. Can't wait to see it on the field spring and then going into the fall. But that was one guy he kind of pointed out from the edge room.
What about Alfred Collins? That's someone who obviously blossomed into a phenomenal defensive tackle and, finally started living up to that 5-star billing. What were some of the guys who was one of the guys that he identified?
Yeah. First guy he mentioned was Alex January. He was like, look, Alex was mixing it up and getting play and burn alongside of us. He was doing some of the things we were doing as 50-year seniors. It took us a little longer to get there. Alex is already there. If he matures a little bit and continues to grow and develop, he think he has a chance to be the next guy in the trenches. But the other guy he mentions besides that was Ethan Burke. He's like, no, that's probably one of the hardest workers on the team. He's long. He's just a dog. He has a mentality that he will not be outworked. He can play any position that you ask him to. He's a team guy, but he thinks going to be a leader amongst the guys in the trenches next year because he's vocal. Everybody respects him, and everybody just kind of follow what he does because he works so hard. So those are 2 guys he pointed out, but he said he can't wait to get back and just talk to those guys in the spring like, hey, it's your turn now. We left it in your hands. It's time to take over.
Justin, Ethan Burke was kind of, I don't want to say lost in the wash, but the fact that you had Colin Simmons and Trey Moore come in, you hoped Ethan Burke would get a little bit bigger, kind of ended up as a backup behind Sorrell. Didn't see as many snaps as he did last year, but now he's primed to, probably play at 260. Kind of has been a fully formed with the strength and conditioning program entering his senior year, and big ones on the rise for number 91.
Ethan Burke is a guy that you're going to see. I believe Matt Miller mentioned him, one of the draft guys that does really well in that market. Mentioned him during the season last year as a guy that's kind of a riser for the next draft for 2027 or 2026 rather. And I think Ethan, this is going to be that next season. I think this year is going to be the year that it's going to be hard for him to come off the field. Obviously, they rotate guys, but Ethan just makes plays. If you notice, the thing about Ethan Burke, you could say, well, he lost some of his reps this year because of, just the rotations and different guys, Trey Moore coming on, Colin Sims coming on. Ethan Burke was making the biggest plays the last 2 months of the season. Obviously the big stop on 4th down in College Station is what he's going to be remembered for, but he had a sack in the playoffs against fellow Westlake quarterback Cade Klubnik. And I actually sent that photo. I sent that photo to Sam Ellinger, and I said, hey, let's get this put on the wall in the field house at Westlake so they understand where they need to go in the next level. And he agreed completely. Ethan Burke has got NFL written all over him. He started a little slow, at like most freshmen do. He'd had a couple little nagging injuries. Now this dude is fully formed. This guy is ready to rock and roll. I think he is consistent. You know what you get from him. He's assignment sound. He doesn't overplay things. He's just around the ball. And I'm telling you, the last 2 months, I felt like when Texas needed a stop, he was on the field. If you go back and look at all those goal line stands they made and 4th down stands, Texas, that they did that religiously last year. Ethan Burke was on the field most of the time. That shows me exactly what the coaches think of him. And then his production was outstanding. I'm telling you, Will Gallagher, we're going to get a 16x20 of that picture, and we're going to put it up in the field house in Westlake. Sam told me he'll get it done. Just so the young youth, Chaparral, they understand when you're at this level, you don't go off to some little school in South Carolina. You stay home.
One of the big plays, I think, from that playoff game, obviously, and man,
that set a tone. That was a tone-setting sack.
Because that was also the cool thing. Now that I think back to the playoff game, is you had the Penn State game start at 11, and then Texas fed into it, and there's parts of me that like don't like afternoon kicks because it means I get there at 12 and I'm leaving there at 8. But man, the scene there was perfect, and I'm very, very happy that, you know, of course it would have been cool if Texas had gotten the bye and won the SEC. But man, that was a very special.
Good call, Joe. That atmosphere, some of the best you'll ever see. That's what the playoff was meant to do. Was bring up these kind of games, these quarterfinals, these type of games on someone's home field advantage. That to me, they took a page out of the NFL, and that worked.
Hey, that's why I've always looked at it this way. For all the problems that people have with Notre Dame, they still have a seat at the table. They have one vote, like the Big 12 has a vote, like the SEC has a vote, like every conference has a vote in this college football playoff thing. There is no way Notre Dame can ever get a bye, at least if they keep the 12-team format like it is right now, and it's probably going to change. But there is no way Notre Dame could get a bye this season. Notre Dame can get a bye next season. We'll see what happens in 2026 when new details are liable to be made. But they agreed to it, and they reap the benefits of it big time, not only in the form of a $14 million playoff share, but also a night game at Notre Dame Stadium against an in-state rival on their way to the national final.
Rival.
Yeah, they don't care at all. It's very weird. Notre Dame is in America. It's not in Indiana.
Well,
Coach, the last guy who was there is the one everybody is kind of focusing on, Quinn Ewers. You got to see what were his first throws since the end of the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I didn't even expect to see Quinn. Just kind of ran into his agent, and then Quinn walks up behind me. I was like, "Oh, what's up?" I didn't know he was in there facility. He came there to get some extra work in. Receivers, he didn't know. I think 2 from TCU, 1 from Georgia, and 1 from Arkansas. He's like, "Hey, I want to throw. You guys want to run some routes?" And to see him kind of direct those guys that he didn't know kind of shows, okay, maybe he's starting to be more vocal, got a little leadership. He's directing this workout out here. It's kind of good to see. And so seeing him going out there, throwing the cold, it was kind of windy, it was kind of cold, but he was been direct. He was getting the ball there, with a little zip there too. So good to see. He kind of put some weight on, but man, he was excited. He's prepared. He's like, can't wait for the draft. But he had to say, hey, Texas is in good hands. Texas is going to be good for a long time to come. The coach was right. The team is right. Everybody's in place. They're going to be good. So he said Texas is in great hands, and it was just kind of good to see him out there. Just going through the motions and really just working on his game, things he's going to do in the combine or at pro day, right? And so it's really good just to kind of see him out there moving, but be vocal to guys he didn't even know.
RT, I know obviously you watched that interview with Arch at the Palace on Palmer, right? So you saw that. And one of the last things, I think the last thing Marty Smith asked Arch was, when did you know? When did you know you were the starter? And I don't think there was a moment like, here's the crown. But he said that Quinn told him, don't forget this. Don't take this for granted. And I think for all the criticism, critiques, blame, accolades that Quinn gets, that still speaks volumes. I felt like that he would tell Arch in that moment when he knows he's going to the NFL, like, don't forget this and be a good teammate because this is yours now.
Yeah, I definitely get labeled into the camp on Inside Texas that falls into being a just total Quinn Ewers homer and apologist. But I think we talked about this the day that he declared for the NFL draft on one of these lives. The several of us that are on here tonight, and I think it's a testament to the fact that there was never any rumblings of dissension with the team. It never became even a Major Applewhite or Chris Sims situation, even though that was probably more overblown in the media than it was in the actual locker room. But it never reached that. You had Arch and Quinn clearly had one another's backs, and credit to Sark that he casted a vision. Credit to the Ewers and the Manning families that they were able to buy into that vision and remain patient in an era where people are not patient very often, sometimes for good reason. Other times, people need to wait their turn. But I mean, you really had the royal family of football, the first family of football, like we've called them so many times over the years, like just being like, we're going to let Arch Manning be a kid. We're going to let him be a college student, develop, be a football player, learn what it's like to sit on the bench and support the starter, come in, play well when your number is called. And I think it's going to be a really valuable experience. And I hope, as the Texas fan in me hopes, that it's a college version of Patrick Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith, because I've talked to Derek Johnson, who's he was there with Patrick Mahomes his rookie year, and he was their scout team quarterback, and they knew Patrick Mahomes was better than Alex Smith, but at the same time, Alex Smith was the quarterback for that team, and there wasn't any dissension because Alex Smith for that year was their best option to win games. So yeah, hope a similar situation played out here, and I have to tip my cap to the way everybody handled themselves.
I think the best thing too about Arch and Quinn was that they are two totally different personalities. If they were two alpha males, it could have gone sideways. If they were two that were clamoring, Arch come in early to play, to challenge to play, there could have been problems. But those two were like the odd couple, and they really do get along, and they really did root for each other. And that's the essence of a team. I can assure you, Chris Sims and Major Applewhite, that wasn't blown out of proportion. If anything, it wasn't reported enough. But with Arch and Quinn, they handled it so well. Give Sark credit, give Milwee credit, but more importantly, you give mom and dad of both those boys credit.
It's huge.
One of the cool things we've seen with, well, how do I say this? Let me start this thought over. Chris Sims and Major Applewhite took very, very different paths after their playing career ended. Obviously, Major went back into the coaching ranks, even stopping by Texas. Fun fact, he was Nick Saban's first offensive coordinator, and that did not last very long. At Alabama. Major was Saban's first offensive coordinator.
I remember that. Okay. I do remember that. Yeah.
That didn't last long. Obviously, he's taken a very circuitous route. Head coach at South Alabama had a good year with Fluff Bothwell this past season.
He had some fun with Ed Oliver in Houston too.
Yeah, jacket gate. Chris Sims has gone all the way into the media world, and he is right there with Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. Whatever you think of him, that's a big platform.
He does well.
And Sims he's on NBC on Sunday nights. He's a leading voice. And I think I saw a clip where he was asked about Arch, and and you don't hear about Sims being gung-ho about Texas too often.
No, you don't hear it at all.
And he doesn't come back. But when he's asked about it, he's all burnt orange. He's
very political about it.
He's one of us. And he was talking about Arch and being excited for him and that type of thing on Radio Row in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Worthy was saying, like, Arch may beat me in a 10-yard 10-yard split, which that'd be I'll believe that when I see it. So there's a lot of excitement going on. Before we get out of here, good 45 minutes. Justin, can't leave you without a good recruiting question.
Let's get it.
This is a good one. Texas offered Zion Ely. He's a Maryland commit right now, number something.
He's out of Maryland, number one player in the country.
And
I'm on three.
Is this because of the recent addition they made with Lau and Clark?
I don't know if it has anything to do with La Allen. Is that how we say it? Is it La Allen, or La Allen? La Allen. I'm gonna call him Coach Clark. Honestly, I think it's Texas just checking the boxes. Look, this is the number one player in the country, according to On3. He is an edge. He is a monster. I watched about 30 seconds of his tape when I got driving in, and that's all it took. He's a freak. He's going to be a good one. Texas just wants to shoot their shot. It's just like when they offered Justice Terry about this time last year. Texas is going to shoot their shot. At this point, they got nothing to lose. Hottest program in college football, coming off back-to-back playoffs, number one class in 2025. They're about to build another monster in 2026. Why not? If you're Texas, we told people they're going to cherry pick throughout the country this year who they want. And they're gonna put an attempt there. He is committed to Maryland. He's a hometown kid out of Joppa, Maryland. I think he goes to St. Francis Academy. But Maryland is, to me, might be temporary. He could stick it out. He could be a hometown guy that sticks it out. But I think this kid's probably going to go the distance with his recruitment. He's going to take the visits. He's going to go see games. He's going to do all this stuff that the number one recruit 5-star would do. But look, if you're Texas, if you're a recruit that plays edge, I'm watching Texas. I'm paying attention to Texas because they showed how to use that position well last year. And so like I report when I posted it on the board earlier at InsideTexas.com, come check out the story or the notes rather. Texas they're going to shoot their shot with these guys now. They're going to take a chance at it. They have nothing to lose. If they can find a connection and a bond, and if Coach Clark provides that, more power to him. So they're gonna take a stab at him. Let him get on campus, and then we can really talk about it.
Maryland seems like one of those states where, Ohio State, Penn State is going to have proximity connection, and
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame for sure.
But like it's just one of those states that has no real allegiance, it feels like, to where
Wasn't
number one
that
player in the
Rich Rod
country.
when Rich Rod was at West Virginia during like the Pat White, Steve Slayton heyday, I feel like Maryland is like where he dominated. Like that was
He's really Tavon Austin, right?
Isn't that where Tavon Austin's from?
Yeah, that's where Tavon Austin's from. So
Edmund Bailey too, I think.
Yes, Edmund Bailey. Yeah. So
and obviously DC. I mean, I bet a lot of he may actually, maybe he lives in DC and travels out there, because we always say a kid from modern days from Santa Ana, and I'm sure they're not all from. Technically, all from Santa Ana.
You can get on a train up there and be in Maryland, D.C., Baltimore, all within like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It's easy to get through. It's easy to get around up there.
So D.C. is a big recruiting area, obviously. I mean, like Caleb Williams came from there. It's not
Kevin
Durant, right? So it's a place where a lot of places try to plant a little bit of a flag. I don't know. We'll see. Got to get him on campus. Got to give him an offer for him to even sign the paper someday. So
get him on campus, and then we can really talk about this kid.
And I think he was on too. You want your friends to play Duncanville, watch him get out there, Duncanville's offensive line, and then get eating that backfield all day.
Did they play this past season, or they're going to play at the start of the year?
No, they played this past season. St. Francis versus Duncanville. That's a game to watch.
All right, I'll have to check that film out.
Yeah,
gentlemen, I think that's it. We got Horns Hoops and John Calipari, a Hall of Famer, coming into town. We'll see if he leaves the bench before the game ends, like one of his proteges at Arkansas did. But it should be fun to watch. Thank you for watching with us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. Hope you all enjoyed signing day. First Wednesday in February, and I looked it up. 3 players in the top 550 were uncommitted. So a little bit of a dud. This isn't signing day anymore, but it's still
certainly not for Texas.
We're still going to be talking about recruiting, football. We'll hit the Arch Manning quota as well. Justin, you and I will be back tomorrow. I think we need to talk about some of our colleagues at On3's national title projections, because there are a couple that have been pretty lofty. over the course.
I think that's good. I think that's good. I think that's good because we've got a guy that helps us with social media that we need to start training on what ball knower means.
With that, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.